And please welcome Nancy to the show this evening. Hi, Nancy.
Hi there, but it's .net, not .com. I have the domain. I just never set it up right. I went with net because it was much more to the point.
Let's hear it again one more time. What's the website?
CosmicReality.net.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. Okay, and we can post.
Hi, everybody out there. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. It's such an honor to have you on tonight. Oh, what a wonderful being you are. And let's talk about all this stuff you're involved in. I can't wait to discuss the shungite. So let's really go there and discuss what the origins are of shungite and how you really got involved in working with this. I guess it's a kind of I want to say it has a consciousness to it.
Well, I was electronic warfare. Mm-hmm. And during that time period, I became introduced to the very dangerous and damaging effects of basically microwave signals, Wi-Fi. Mm-hmm. And then I learned more about the electromagnetic field in our house, that also is a problem. So I was very much aware, but in the 80s I tried to start a business. Nobody wanted to listen to me. And it wasn't until 2014, the spring of 2014. And all of a sudden, for whatever reason, there was a rampage on, oh my gosh, this electromagnetic field thing is going to kill us. And my Facebook kept ding, 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 and they were just going at it. And by then I had understood that relationship between Gaia and ourselves and had really committed to helping to change the planet from a very basic way in our understanding of Gaia and who's really in charge. And so by then I was basically listening to Gaia. And so I was just sort of fed up with all this dinging, and I said, please, Gaia, give me something to give them. And within an hour, I had been led to, and I wasn't looking for it. I don't even know how I got there, but all of a sudden I'm on this website, and it's talking about shungite and how it can, they were saying block, okay, but it's not blocking, it's not absorbing, it's called attenuation of electromagnetic fields. Now, what happens is that the word attenuation is being used. I knew they weren't discussing it right. So I had to go way, way back to try to find the first translation of a document that would talk about the EMF versus shungite done in Russian, because the Russians were the ones that had been playing with it for so long, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But what I finally got was the word attenuate. And attenuate means change. Not absorb, not block, but change. So I went over there. I said, here, guys, get this stuff. You'll be okay. And I was very busy, whatever I was doing. And then the next thing I knew, within a week of that, a friend of mine who had been planning a visit for me for 2 years shows up. And she comes in and she turns on her Wi-Fi system. She has the little thing that she, plugged it in. I don't have Wi-Fi. I didn't, and boom, all of a sudden the energy in the house changed so much. I said, you got to turn that off. I can't take that energy.
Wow.
So she looked at me really weird. And then she looked at her hand and she took off a ring and she went over and put it on the Wi-Fi antenna of the router, the Wi-Fi router. She put it on the antenna. And all of a sudden the entire field shifted into just this lovely field. And I said, what did you just do? And she said, I just got this thing called shungite. Gaia does work amazingly. It's like, you're not paying attention. I told you it was shungite. Okay, I'm going to get your friend to bring you the shungite. Well, as soon as I got it and I felt it, I said, oh my God, because I'd been in the mineral business for decades, buying and selling minerals. And I'd never encountered anything like this as an energetic, in its energetic properties. So I went online immediately, started learning more about it, found out that it also had a lot of attributes for healing. I had a dog, Josie, that was 48 hours from dying. She was just in bad straits. We put a pendant of this shungite, because my friend is also a dealer, and she had ordered it and got it the day before she came down here. And so we stuck the pendant on Josie, and the next day Josie was so good, I forgot to give her medication until the afternoon.
Wow.
And she lived another 6 months. And when she passed because she wanted to, not because her body was giving out on her. Mm-hmm. So,
where'd you go?
Anyway, the microwave thing is a change in the frequency. All of these frequencies that come in and are damaging are actually rotating in a left-hand spin or a counterclockwise spin. Now, Regina, what's Regina's? Martino. Regina Martino. She's written a book called Shungite, Purification, Healing, and Detoxification. Now, she's a French lady that I had run into right in my beginning of the investigation, but the book was only in French, and it came out this spring, or June, I think it was, in English. She's with a bioenergetic clinic in France, and in '06, she was given a box with something in it, and both she and her partner were like, what is this? And then they found out it was shungite. So they devised a number of different programs with strict protocols to investigate what shungite was really all about. And that is what the book is all about. It talks about the history and the problems with the history and all that, and I'm going to cover it real quickly in a second.
Great.
But her bioenergetic investigation proved that when an electromagnetic field comes into the field, hits the field of the shungite, that field instantaneously wants to spin in the right hand motion, the motion of clockwise, the motion that is the healing natural movement of anything that is pure and within the life cycle. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden it would hit it, boom, and they would use the word instantaneous continually, that the shift was that fast. So she was just backing up. When I finally read it, she was just backing up what we had already learned. Now, what did we already learn about it? Well, the only place you can get shungite is in Russia, just to the east of Finland. It actually used to be in Finland, but after World War II, Russia took over the area. It's in a huge, just like I believe something hit the earth when the earth was still semi-molten. And because it goes down many hundreds of feet into the ground, but it's lying on top of the ground. I mean, it's like you just start digging away at it. Mm-hmm. And the molecule that makes shungite so very magical is not supposed to be seen on Earth. The only place that it should be seen is in a vacuum, like in the vacuum of space. Mm. And they know that because of they got my understanding. Now you hear different stories, but my understanding was that it was a group of chemists that wanted to, or physicists. I'm not. Well, they were, scientists. Let's say scientists. They wanted to find out what kind of molecules could be created within the vacuum of space, and so they theoretically developed this thing called a C60 molecule, which is 60 molecules of carbon. And it was very specific in its relationship geometrically to anything else, because it's like two geodesic domes that are sitting with the bases together. So you've got two of them coming together to make what looks like a soccer ball. Mm-hmm. So they actually were able to finally isolate this thing in the lab to create it, and it got they won a Nobel Prize for it.
Wow, excellent.
Okay. So then they decided they would see if they could find it in nature. And they did. They found it in the area near a little village called Shunga, which is why it's called shungite. They found trace amounts in a meteorite strike in Canada. They found trace amounts in two gold mines, one in Russia and one in Canada. And they found it recently in Colorado where a lightning strike hit. But trace amounts of the fullerene molecule. It's called the fullerene after Buckminster Fuller. Mm-hmm. It's also called a buckyball because it was Fuller who did all of the investigation into geodesic domes. Mm-hmm. So now one of the interesting things about the geodesic dome and its geometric structure is that, and this was weird. I mean, every place I go, I end up running into Buckminster Fuller. I was doing some kind of like relearning a little bit of sacred geometry, which is now science. Mm-hmm. And I ended up with Buckminster Fuller talking about this buckyball structure that because of the equal angles and the equal sides, that there would be a 0 point in the center of it, like a vortex. And that was just stunning to me because that is what I had energetically seen happening inside the molecule. Now, what happens is that because you've got the 0 point, the fullerene or buckyball wants to draw in, well, it's not so much draw in as quantum, quantum energy wants to rush into the vacuum. Nature hates a vacuum, so it just is rushing into that vacuum. Now, in a normal, like a pen, well, not even a pendant, but like a normal nugget, the field is radiating out into the 3D. So there is a slow change from pulling quantum energy into the center to then radiating out into the 3D. That's why whenever two fields come together, the shungite always wins, because the more damage done to the outside field being broken up or working to remodulate things, the more the quantum energy starts to flow. So when you enhance the ability of the field to flow, which we do when we wrap the pendants are not just, a way of getting shungite around your throat. It's the actual wrapping of the wire creates a spiraling effect that intensifies the force of the field. All right? So that's the key to how shungite works. Its simple, purpose in life is to take all toxic energy and to create a field that will cause that toxic energy to reverse its spin. Now, when you have an electromagnetic field or a Wi-Fi radio field, what's happening is that it's simply changing the structure, the modulation, the way that this spin is, to become healing, to not be damaging. And there is there's one study based on over 1,800 studies on electromagnetic energy and the damaging effects of it. It cannot be denied anymore. Nobody calls me crazy when I start talking about this now, because everybody knows. There's doctors, there's scientists, there's educators, there's parents that are seeing their children. There's so many. Well, they're even the same group, the oh gosh, I'm sorry, I don't remember what the title of it. I don't want to mislead you. But these people are now looking at autism in relationship to Wi-Fi, because the rates of autism has kept pace with the increased proliferation of the Wi-Fi systems.
Wow.
So they're looking at that too. Of course, the rise in cancer can be directly attributed to it now. My brother, who was a year younger than I was working with radars, and that's basically the same kind of, damaging field. And I tried to tell him that he was endangering himself, but he never did listen to me. And he died 8 years ago from the same brain tumor that is now directly linked to cell phone energy.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, so it's a personal, mission that I'm on. But it's more than that, because I see the children and animals who are actually struggling, trying to fight off this terrible energy. And to show you the real intense effects of what this is, during the early space age, the Soviets were doing long-term space voyages. So they'd send somebody up in that tin can and let them go around the Earth for quite a while. Well, we started hearing that they were coming back crazy. And I actually thought it was disinformation by the United States, but it turns out they were coming back crazy. And at first they had no clue. They thought maybe it's radiation, maybe it's anti-gravity. The no gravity situation. They didn't know. But what they tied it to was that when a spacecraft is above Earth, you have no bioelectromagnetic field. The Earth field, the energy field that the human brain is designed to work in, is not there. And it would deteriorate because it wasn't working in the environment it should. And so, and they found out some interesting things. Like they found out that the first indicator of this starting to happen was aggression. That was probably based on fear, because you don't know what's happening. And they would actually get to the point of hallucinating.
Wow.
When they did the same experimentation, taking the field away on the Earth, in an Earth environment, they were able to control it much better, because, of course, you could take somebody out of it after they got to that point and say, no, right, you're right on Earth, you're all right, and then pretty soon the brain would come back. they found that most women are less susceptible to it than men, which I find fascinating.
Yeah.
Because the natural flux of the Earth's bioelectromagnetic field, the natural one, is changing. Who knows? But on top of that, you've got all of this, man-made crap that is absolutely designed, and I don't want to get into it. I think, you understand it, but it's designed to actually get inside your mind.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, psychotronic hardware, and that's my background.
Yes, and I figure your audience probably well understands.
Yes, they do. Absolutely.
So we know the dangers of it, and like I say, when you get into the field of the shungite, all of those dangers are mitigated away because of the attenuation of the fields. Now, interestingly enough, we've learned so much. I mean, there's so much science behind this, and I see things energetically. I know that the universe is an energy universe. I think in terms of it. I was an electronic warfare officer. You have to learn to think like that. And I also, because of my interface at the level of the NSA when I was in, I became involved with some of their people that were, at the time, it was just beginning to get into quantum physics. And because of that introduction, I felt comfortable with it. It didn't scare me. I can't say that I'm a quantum physicist. No, I only know I'm like a layperson who kind of understands what it's all about. And because I had such a very diverse experience with minerals and stuff, I mean, all the things came together for me to understand what this was about. And then the universe, Gaia, sent me Walt Silva, who is very knowledgeable in all sorts of spirals and orgone flow, and he immediately understood the importance of shungite. And so together we've been making these devices that in order to try to take the knowledge that we have of the science and make it into something that can be applied at a 3D level.
Nice.
And that's what we've been doing. So we have on the cosmicreality.net, there's the shungite store. And in there you can buy the pendants, you can get the nuggets. And tonight, because I was hoping that maybe some people would hear this show and be able to get over there, we have a brand new product, and we call it the Bucky Band-Aid. And it's designed to be put on phones, cell phones.
Nice.
What it is it's a piece of aluminum tape. And they're not real attractive right now. We are in the process of trying to get better aesthetically looking aluminum. But I can't even get it until the middle of March. It's a specialty item. So right now we're going to go with the Bucky Band-Aids that are less attractive, but they absolutely do their job. And what it is you've got the aluminum tape, and then you have sandwiched between a double back tape a pile of shungite, powdered shungite. And you go, well, how could a pinch of powder be effective for anything? Well, interestingly enough, when you're dealing with shungite, the closer you get to the quantum area, the faster everything works. The smaller, the better. You can have a big, huge 2-pound brick of shungite, and it will not be as powerful as one little teeny molecule. Wow. Sitting with at least 2 other little teeny molecules, because you need 3 to get what's called cohesion. So if you have a pile of 100, 150, 200 little teeny weeny nuggets in a pile of powder, you have an extraordinary source of energy. And when we started playing with it, I was like, well, again, what happened was that I heard a new study that was released by the Israelis regarding the salivary gland in the right and left cheek area, that they're having, they've linked cancer, the increase in cancer of this area to the cell phones. And I have 2 friends, both of which she was told melatonin cancer in one cheek, and the other one has just had a biopsy on a mass that's been there for months. So it freaked me out. I saw it, and I went to Walt, and I said, Walt, we've got to find something that will go directly on the cell phones. Now, at the time, there was, and there is right now, shungite plates. They're about 1 inch square or so, and they're about 1/8 of an inch thick, and they have adhesive, and you stick them on the phone. Martina actually investigated these and found that they were effective. Mm-hmm. But I was never drawn to them, and I couldn't compete money-wise to give it to my customers at a good rate. And so I just didn't get into it. But now, because of this Israeli study, now I'm like back focused on the cell phone. And so as I'm talking to him, and this is the beauty of Walt, is that he just was like, okay, all right, we can do this. And within, a minute of the conversation, he had the prototype in his head. And, the next 2 days later, he sent me the first one.
Excellent. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's the way it seems to work. Everything that we ask, we get. Mm-hmm. It's part of the magic of understanding reality is what you think it is.
Right. And what about implants? I know we kind of talked about this off air briefly. So what about people who have an implant? And let's discuss that a little bit.
Well, I really wasn't thinking in terms of implants at all when we got into this, but I sent it to sent the first. It wasn't even our stuff. It was a pendant. At that time you could only get the machined ones. We wanted the raw, and because I know raw is always more powerful than machined. So I had some of the machined pendants, and I sent it to a friend of mine. And then I got the raw, and I sent her one of mine. And as soon as she got the second one, about 10 days later, she said, you know something? She said, implants are coming out of my body. I said, what are you talking about? And she said, I'm telling you, I thought they were pimples, but they're not. And she actually had one in her ear that she was very much aware of. And she was in the passenger seat as her husband was driving, and she heard it pop.
Wow.
And then she felt and it was gone. So, and she's describing, she said, it looks like a pimple. You think it's a pimple at first, but it's not. And so, I said something to my friend who had also been on the shungite for, the same amount of time. And she said, that's not happened to me. And I said, no, and it wouldn't happen to me either, and I laughed. And, then not 5 minutes later, she says to me, I've got this thing. It's like a pimple on my back shoulder. Can you look at it? And I looked at it. I took a picture and showed her. She said, what the hell is that? I said, well, my guess would be an implant. She said, no. I said, well, that's what Jean described to me. Mm-hmm. And interesting. So anyway, I haven't had any more reports. But then again, it would be like my friend Cindy. She wouldn't think in terms of it being an implant. Right. My other friend works with implants. She goes in and turns them off. In
the etheric level? Or
yes.
On the etheric? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's interesting. So I'm thinking maybe this would help Morgellons patients, correct? Or maybe?
Yes, I do believe that. And I think that any patient that gets on the shungite is going to be helped simply because it's balancing out your etheric body.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And let me ask you a personal question here, and it's live on air amongst you and a million others, or plus or minus. So obviously, if I'm interfaced with artificial intelligence and I want to disable that connection, you being an electronic warfare expert in the past, what is your suggestion?
Shungite.
Okay.
What it does is you got the implant, you got a signal happening. Okay. Mm-hmm. The signal is all of these signals are rotating in the wrong direction, but that's how they're designed to work. So when the shungite gets into the picture, it doesn't necessarily turn them off. It just attenuates the signal, so the signal is no longer able to do what it was intended to do.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. Redirects, is that what you mean?
Yes, and then once your body begins to become etherically balanced, okay, all of this crap that's in your body, whether it's toxic chemical or electromagnetic, or it's an implant, something that's been put in there that shouldn't be, your etheric body is going to start to do everything it can to get rid of them. Mm-hmm. So it might take months and months for these things to show up on the outside of your skin. But I have no doubts that they're not working that way. And I'll tell you why. Because I absolutely am committed to the fact that there is a creator consciousness called Gaia. And Gaia is the God consciousness of this biosphere. I'm not saying there's not some source God someplace. Mm-hmm. But I'm saying in this biosphere, one of the rules of cosmic reality is that To have manifestation, you have to have consciousness. And so the consciousness of Gaia took a chance. And in the book, I go through all the levels of conscious experience, you know, from being a molten gas or a bubbling gas, cloud, then getting into molten metal, and then going into the next level of the micro world. And then you go into the vegetable world, the plant world. You know, you keep going up until you get to the concept of a human being. And a human being is different from you've got a human, which is an animal kind of creature that is just been from genetics or maybe manipulated genetics or whatever. But then you have a human being. And a human being is a creation of Gaia's, in my opinion, that has the structure to allow a truly magnificent spirit to understand 3D world and energies and to manifest at that level. So essentially what she did was she said, you know, I want to know what it's like to have a whole population of beings who are creator gods in their own right, that they have that ability at the conscious level to manifest. Now, she's no fool, Gaia, and she knew she was taking a big risk. So what I believe she did was she called in the assistance of spirits on the other side, God spirits, semi-God, I don't know who they are, archangels, the watchers, the animal watchers, elves and gnomes, for all I know. I don't know who they are, but I know that through my life, I have been very, very guided. And when you get with people that, you know, are really open to everything, their imagination is not stifled, you find that they have had kind of magical lives. There's all sorts of weird things that happen, but they lead you down a particular path. And I think that thing about leading people down to paths is to guide us to the realization that Gaia exists, and the only way that humanity is going to survive is for human beings to take a leap and be able to claim dominion over themselves and over the planet. Not that we're saying we're going to take care of the planet, but that we are merging our forces with all of our limited knowledge yet to help Gaia reclaim her own domain. Because in taking the chance, she gave human beings the opportunity to think, what, this Gaia thing doesn't exist. We're the only important things. And boom, if you don't have enough energy feeding the Gaia concept, Gaia could simply disappear. Because why? Reality is what you think it is. So in order to protect that from happening, and therefore the entire system to just fizzle out, she's had all these guides that have been assisting me and other people, probably you, and probably the vast majority of human beings at this point.
Makes perfect sense to me. So with the Shungite and working in connection with Shungite and Gaia, would you say that setting the intent or doing a meditation with it or something to reconnect that energy field, is that something you suggest?
Again, Shungite does this thing. It kind of links you. It puts you in a state of energy opening where you're directly connected to Gaia. It doesn't. Some people fight it, but sooner or later they're going to realize that they're beginning to feel very good. The first thing that anybody says to me after they've been on Shungite as a while is, "I just feel happy."
Nice.
They say, "I don't know. I don't know the energies," but they just feel happy. And that's because the pineal gland, which is so, especially in this country, gunked up with the fluoride, the microcrystals in the pineal gland begin to vibrate. And as they vibrate, they make a connection to your higher self. So that higher self is much more connected to Gaia and everything around it. And so you begin to have this connection and feeling like there's somebody out there watching out for me. And it computes in the human being as feeling happy because they feel secure. They don't feel alone.
Right. Yeah. And what about ingesting shungite? I know you mentioned placing it, I guess, in water.
Well, yeah, actually, in the Russians, well, the Soviet Union before them, but the Russians, almost all of their water treatment plants, and maybe all of them by now, are based on shungite, not carbon. And it's because the field of the shungite, now you'll hear people talking about that it absorbs. It does not absorb anything from the water. They have done massive testing trying to find out, because what you'll hear you need X amount of shungite for X amount of water, and it can be in there for X amount of time, and then you have to take it out, and you have to throw it out, and you have to buy more. That's bullshit. Okay, because what you're doing is you're doing it at the energy level. But that's the only way that some people can even imagine that this is happening. And yet the scientists, they look at the shungite, and if you take carbon and shungite going, the water's going through the same water going through both systems, carbon is going to be full of crap, and shungite is going to have nothing in it. It attenuates it. It changes it. Because if you've got toxins in the form of bacteria and chemicals and whatever else pollutes water, when their fields, again, rotating in the counterclockwise position or counterclockwise rotation, when it hits the shungite, and instantaneously, it's like taking a top and stopping it. Okay. Now, in the case of an electromagnetic field, you stop it and then it starts rotating the other way. But in a toxic environment with all this pollution in it, when it stops, it disintegrates and it goes back to proto energy, and that's what they're missing. In my opinion, this is what I'm bringing to the table because of my being led down the path with so many different talents and understandings to be able to see it for what it is.
Right. Yeah, you're incredible. This is really an honor to have you on tonight, I must say.
Oh, no, thank you.
You're wonderful.
I
just love you.
You've been out there for a long time.
Oh, gosh, I should have talked to you a long time ago. I've been suffering for years. Anyways, well, that's a personal thing. But anyways, in addition to, now this is something that you probably don't need to incorporate crystals with. Is that right? You
do not. But shungite is, it's a sentient, it has a sentience to it. In other words, a consciousness.
Right.
Now, for people that don't understand and haven't worked with minerals, that would be very difficult to understand. But everything, from the bird to the plant, they all have a proto-consciousness. And I did on my radio show, Cosmic Reality, a really good presentation because I had taken 3 tapes from YouTube and kind of strung them together and put the bridges between them to make people understand. This new quantum physics has led people to, the scientists, and I'm talking about known scientists, led them to understand that without consciousness you cannot have manifestation, and consciousness is energy. So where does it come from? It comes from what's called proto-consciousness, and they've actually determined where in each cell this proto-consciousness is resting.
Wow.
So what happens is that when we believe in something as having a consciousness, we are accepting a new reality, that it has consciousness. In the case of shungite, it's kind of like each piece has a different, it's almost like if you think of incarnation. Now, one of the problems that people make, or mistakes they make, is they think that incarnation happens like you live one life, you die, you live one life, you die. That's not what's happening. You can live simultaneously on the same time frame.
Yep.
It's only a difference between place and space. So if you've got your space, which is your human soul energy field, the place is actually where you are in the physical universe. So as long as you and I are not standing in the same spot, we could be projected by the same soul. Okay?
Makes sense.
Same thing with shungite. You've got the mother lode in Russia, and all of these little pieces of her that's going out through the world. Each one of them has like their own little consciousness, and if you work with it, you will feel the sentient being in the shungite. Anybody that's not played with a shungite for a while becomes a very interesting change in their attitude towards it, because it's like they understand the power. And they will talk to their stones. I mean, You know, can we do this? Can we do this? You know, it's like it's a learning process, because the last thing I want your audience or you to take away is that I know everything about it. I do not. Nobody knows enough about it. It is like the most magical. The Russians say it's the medicine of the 21st century, and they also say it will be worth its weight in gold.
Wow.
And
go ahead.
I can just tell you that I thought that was, you know, a little bit of exaggeration. But I've only been in the business since, and the reason I'm in the business is because there was no U.S. market. Nobody was bringing it over. There was a couple here and a couple there that were doing the water stuff, but there was no big player in America, in the United States, in the North American area. And so that's what I had to work very hard to do, was to get to be the big player, because it was you can get it, but to get what I wanted was getting more difficult. And even from the well-known and established ways of getting it, the prices are going up. It is getting more difficult. I like to go for the big bricks, which means that they're at least a pound and above, up to 5 pounds, because we are using those to create the shungite powder. And they couldn't even get me my first order. It took 6 months to get here, and it was light. And so it's one of those things that we don't care anymore if they just shut it down, because we've got so much powder. We've got these rocks. So we can take these rocks and I asked Gaia, this is another good example of what happens. I was really upset when I got these big, huge rocks, because I can't sell them. They'd be too expensive to sell. So I'm going like, what do you want me to do with these, And it was like, then Walt's talking to me about the powder stuff. We make these Bucky Band-Aids that you stick on the cell phones. And I said to him, well, you want me to get you some more powder? Because I had ordered powder directly from Russia. And he says, well, to be honest, if I need the powder, I take out my electric sander and I sand it off the big rock. And I went, what? And I'm going like, oh my God, this is not sacred, And then I asked Gaia, I said, is it all right he's doing this? And she was like, yes. And I said, okay. I said, is it all right if we use the big ones you sent? Yes. And the way I hear it in my head when she says these things in this tone, I go, I didn't ask the right question. So it took me a while before I realized how I should phrase it. And I said, do you want us to use those big stones for powder? Yes. Why did you think I sent them to you? So that's what we've got, the powder. We can change everything with what we've got now. So nobody panic. Even if they turned off the spigot, we're good. We're good to go.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. And I've heard that shungite is 2 billion years old. Is that true, or?
They estimate between 2 and 4 billion years old, and that's what the problem is that even at 2 billion years old, the planet did not see. They say, okay, well, it was they first thought it was vegetables getting all mushed up and turning into oil, and then the oil under pressure turns into shungite, like a normal coal environment. It's not coal. It looks like coal, has same chemicals in it, but the coal doesn't have the fullerenes. So, whereas coal is burnt, shungite will not burn. It's actually used to coat inside of burners, boilers and things. You can't change it. Well, you can change it with a certain amount of pressure, but not like a natural kind of thing. The shungite is just so different from coal. There's no comparison. So, that's not working in the time element because you don't have any vegetation. So then they decided, well, maybe it was microorganisms. Can you imagine how many microorganisms you would need to make a field of shungite that's, about 400 feet deep and 1,000 kilometers wide, square kilometers wide? So the only thing it could have been is something hit it from outer space. And there's a lot more of us that think that than don't. And that would have happened between the aging on it is 2 to 4 billion years old.
Wow, that's fascinating. So would there be a radioactive signature or no?
I would assume there was, but I don't know what it is. I have never seen that data.
Not now, though, right?
Oh, you mean like no, it wouldn't be. Well, radiation, there's so many. Yes, if you could test the field of shungite, that's a radiation.
But it's not a detrimental.
No.
Okay.
There's nothing. I personally believe that shungite brought the original chemistry for life because they know, I mean, this is one of the most highly studied materials that is out there today. And they know that the shungite molecule itself, the 60, because there's different versions of it. You can have different carbon, different number of carbon molecules. But when I'm referencing anything, it is the 60 carbon molecule, the C60, that looks like the buckyball. Inside of that, because of the 0 point that's inside of it geometrically, they can put gases, they can put other molecules. It's a huge molecule. And they're thinking in terms of how can this be applied to nanotechnology, of course. So there's just a tremendous amount of ability for this molecule to carry things. Right. And I believe that when Earth really started in the concept of life beyond mineral, it came in the form of shungite. The chemistry came there. The energies came through the shungite. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, shungite represents the heart of Gaia. Right. That's the way I've thought about it from the instant I started playing with it.
Well, it certainly is a blessing.
Well, they call it the miracle mineral for a reason.
Wow.
And we did not make that up. This is stuff, that the Russians have been looking at this for, the first known spa that was created was the Emperor of Russia, Peter the Great. And he set one up right in the Shunga area because all the lake, there's a huge lake in the area, and all the water, it's all pure. They don't treat it. They just stick a pipe in it and suck it out. And he found that there was healing. It was healing. It had a lot of history of healing. So he created a spa for his soldiers, and he would bring his soldiers there to heal. They used shungite rooms in military hospitals in the cardiac in the heart ward, because they found that if they had shungite rooms and they put people who had heart problems inside these rooms, they were healing 3 to 5 days faster.
Wow. They've
also used the same thing to treat, if you remember back, and I don't remember the exact date now, but there was, it was in the 90s, I think, well, I don't even know that. Maybe it was closer to us, but they had a theater full of kids that was taken over by terrorists in Russia. Well, those kids were taken, they actually built shungite rooms and took the kids there because of the psychiatric kind of healing that occurs in them.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So the Russians understand this very well. And it's only since 2014 that the United States is waking up to it, and Canada.
Wow, it's amazing. And didn't the Russians also use this for shielding from electromagnetic warfare or something like that, or no?
Well, they use it for electromagnetic Wi-Fi shielding, yes.
Okay, yeah.
But see, that's not the correct word for it, because it's attenuation. That's an American word for what the Russians are doing. The Russians are not saying it's shielding or it's absorbing or, they're saying it's attenuating the signals. Right. But because in the United States, they do everything in their power to make us not understand the energy universe. We don't even know how to translate it correctly.
Wow, and that makes a huge difference.
So in the water, you don't need X amount of shungite in the water. All you need is 3 nuggets. Now we say 3 nuggets, doesn't matter the size, because for some reason that we sort of understand, but it's hard to explain. When you got 3 nuggets, you have what's called cohesion. It's like the fields are feeding each other, and through resonance, it's like sets up a group field, if you will. So if you put 3 nuggets in water, you're going to be golden.
Excellent. How long do you leave it in the water?
Instantaneous.
Wow.
And one of the things that you can do, because it's really funny, if you take it and you drop it in, well, the first thing that you'll notice is the water tastes different. It feels different in your mouth, and that's because when you take water from your faucet, it's dead water. Water loses its spin when it goes 100 feet down a straight pipe or takes a 90-degree turn. So the water coming out of our faucets is dead. When you put the nuggets of shungite in it, it immediately starts spinning. And spinning water, moving water, has a different softness in your mouth. It has a different surface tension. So it actually feels different. It definitely tastes different. And some people have had some fun putting it in, dropping a nugget in beer or a glass of wine, because as soon as it gets there, there's an effervescence that starts all around the nugget. And it starts to bubble. The beer will bubble, the wine will bubble, right? And it tastes great. Best wine and beer you'll ever have. It's smooth as can be, but you will not get drunk on it.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's very disappointing to a lot of people. Oh, man, I drank all that wine. I didn't even get a buzz, you know?
That's
Do you have
funny.
shungite in it? Yeah, well, that's the reason.
That's amazing. And does the shungite wear down after a while when you put it in water?
That's an interesting thing, because one guy was using nuggets in his aloe drink. It was based on aloe vera, and it virtually disappeared. It got smaller and smaller. The shungite was, but we had a thing on the January 1st, where I had a 4.5 rock of shungite that I wrapped kind of like we were just screwing around, with 10 feet of 1/4-inch copper piping, okay? And so I wrapped this thing up, and on January 1st, while some people were here, the shungite in the pendant either shrunk or the copper expanded. We don't know what happened, but instead of it being like a pendant, it was now like a cage. And we were taking photographs while this happened. So we definitely, if you go over to, cosmicreality.net, in the Cosmic Reality Radio Show, there's a pictures of all this.
Excellent.